This video, I'm going to be sharing with you the 3 reasons to stay in 3D and not ascend to a 5D level of consciousness. And in this video, you'll know exactly what those are and why you can stay there. Welcome back to another video. My name is Aaron and I help people expand their consciousness. Now in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you the 3 reasons you may want to stay in 3D and not ascend to a 5D level of consciousness. And I'm going to show you what those reasons are, and then I'm going to show you the shadow side of those reasons as well, because this happens a lot. Many people will go through a spiritual awakening or start the process of a spiritual awakening, and then they may not like certain aspects of it. So out of fear, they may go back to something else that's comfortable. They may go back to something else that makes them forget about the whole spiritual awakening process, because it can be a little bit disorienting while going through it. When you become aware that you are an eternal spiritual being living a temporary human experience, it's a lot to take in. You might take it in and be like, whoa, I don't know about this. I don't know about all this spiritual awakening stuff. And you might feel a little bit afraid as well. I know when I went through that, that's kind of how it was. I was afraid of it. I would go and I would tell people about it, and then some people would judge it, or family members wouldn't understand it, and then I'd be like feeling like I was a dummy or something. And going through it makes you question it, you know? And for this process, what then sometimes people will do is they go through that pain of the backlash of going through that spiritual awakening, that ascension into a higher level of consciousness. And what they end up doing is doing maybe drugs, maybe somehow numbing it and trying to forget who they are, going back to the old lifestyle. And you see it happen sometimes. And sometimes people go back and forth for a while between the 3 to 5D levels of consciousness and rejecting wanting to be in the 5D because of certain characteristics of it and staying in that of the 3D. So first off, let me just clarify, what is 3D, what is 5D? 3D level of consciousness is in a way what we were born into. And born into in the way that we have duality around us. We have good, bad, light, dark, up, down. And we come into this reality believing that we are our avatar. We are what we are experiencing reality through. Our avatar experiences reality through the 5 senses. We can touch, we can smell, we can taste, we can hear, these are different aspects, different ways of interpreting vibration from our avatar. We grow up though believing we are our avatar. Thinking, this is who I am. Someone said this to me. Our avatar will do everything it can to be right. Our avatar will do everything it can to survive, and not just survive in the sense of the bare necessities of life, but survive in its identity for who it thinks it is. But that's when we're unaware of the larger eternal spiritual part of ourselves. So we go through living our life as this part of us, not knowing we are so much more, and then things continue to happen that sometimes beat us up. And then eventually, we may become aware that we are an eternal spiritual being living a temporary human experience. Now, the 3D levels of consciousness normally come with an attachment, a desire, always looking for more. When it comes to the law of attraction, when it comes to that of the 3D reality, it's like I really, really want that to attract that from over there to into here. And there's a lot of trying. There's normally a long process, a lot of emphasis on time. Whereas in a 5D level of consciousness, there's an understanding that the game of separation begins to end. What I mean by that is in 3D, we have to be right. This group is right, this group is wrong. There's a lot of fighting back and forth, a lot of saying this is me, this is you. And that's what creates separation. The more we emphasize our egos, the more we feel separated from other people. Now, 5D level of consciousness is when we become aware that we are eternal spiritual beings, and we become aware that we can connect to our heart more so than our head. 3D is from the head. Left brain, right brain, that's duality. The heart is a singular point of focus. The heart is when we realize we are connected to everyone else. Everyone else is a reflection of us. So I wouldn't do something bad to you because you are another aspect of me. This is why there is what you put out is what you get back. Other people in our reality at the deepest levels are other versions of us. And in a 5D level of consciousness, we start to realize that. Well, I'm not going to treat that person bad because they are another version of me at a deeper level. And in the 5D level of consciousness, we start to become aware of vibration. Things are vibrations. So instead of the 3D of I really, really want that from over there to into here, it then becomes more so, how can I vibrationally resonate with it? Because the reality I experience is a reflection of my vibration. So the focus begins to change. And it feels so more expanded. In the 5D level of consciousness, we will feel more joy, love, peace, and the higher vibrational emotions. In the 3D level of consciousness, there's a very high tendency to feel shame, fear, guilt, anger towards other people for their perspective, or the lower vibrational emotions are there. And there could be some, mid-level emotion in that of the 3D reality, but in general, it comes from an attachment to some ideology. Now, right now on the planet, we are shifting from 3 to 5D level of consciousness. It's been happening and it will continue to happen. And it's very powerful to see, because as time goes on, we have more and more ability to really raise our frequency. If you notice that things have been manifesting quicker than ever, have you noticed that the experience of time has been going by super fast? That's because as we ascend in the collective consciousness, as we are raising our vibration, we all have that potential. So understand, this is a natural byproduct of what's happening right now on the planet. Now, the 3 reasons to stay in 3D. The first one is because 3D is very comfortable. It's very comfortable in 3D. Everyone kind of expects you to be a certain way, and if you act in alignment with the way people expect you to be, there's not much backlash. There's not much people criticizing you. This is one of the reasons people will stay in 3D, is because they believe it is comfortable. And when they start getting a little bit uncomfortable, they go, no, what is all this uncertainty? These things I've never known before. We may have lived a whole 20 years of our life or longer believing one way, and then all of a sudden we have this new perspective, and it's a little bit scary because it's not as comfortable. It's new. It's the unknown. And when I went through my awakening, it was very similar to that. There was a level of spaciousness, but there was also a level of fear. Because what you don't know, you can't predict. You then start to see reality in a completely new way. There are parts of it that were nice, but there were parts of it that were uncomfortable. There's new emotions. Sometimes people sabotage themselves. They start to feel higher vibrational emotion, and they go, oh, this is too good to be true. I can't feel this all the time. And then they sabotage themselves somehow because they have this belief that they're not worthy of it. Or they start to feel the shadow side of going through the spiritual awakening. As you raise your frequency, you will bring up all the things that haven't been processed yet. And as you do so, you may be like, well, I don't want to deal with this right now. I want to go back to what I was doing before. Yes, maybe I was a little bit less aware. Maybe I could just go watch TV with my friends. Maybe I could just go and have these conversations that weren't so meaningful, but they were fun and comfortable. Maybe I'll just go do that because this shadow stuff that's being brought up isn't so comfortable. And many people will do that. They'll go back and forth for a while because when you start to bring up the shadow side of us is the part of us that's been growing up believing it's the ego, believing it's the avatar. That shadow side of us maybe still have some momentum, and then we're becoming aware of it, and we're bringing up all the stuff that wasn't processed when we were young. Maybe certain situations from childhood. Maybe different things that happened in ways we identified ourselves. But you see, this is the key. We become aware of it, we begin to transform our lives. And the shadow is something we can begin to integrate. But it may not be comfortable to integrate your shadow. You may go through a couple months of integrating your shadow and say, you know what? Yeah, this isn't for me. I'm going to go back to what I was doing before and try to forget about it. Here's the thing though. Once you start the spiritual awakening process, it's started. You may go on a tangent for a year or two or however long, but eventually you will be brought back and guided back to your spiritual growth. So just know that, yes, the 3D may be more comfortable, and it may be a reason to stay in the 3D. However, know that eventually the spiritual side of you, whatever you want to call it, your spiritual guides, your higher self, will guide you back in the direction of you stepping into the unknown. Miracles can only happen in the unknown too. Realize that. We think the same thoughts every day, feel the same emotions every day, do the same things every day. Therefore, we create the same things every single day. Nothing new we can experience because it's so predictable. Our mind knows what to jump to. You get into the unknown, new possibility. There's new possibility. There's new possibility in you going through your spiritual awakening because it's a new realm that you haven't explored consciously yet. So just know that as you move through this process, it will be tempting to go back into what is comfortable, but you are strong enough to go through it. You are strong enough to go through it. It would not have happened. Your spiritual awakening would not have sparked if you were not ready. And if you're watching this video right now, then you are ready to hear this. Or you're already going through the process. So just know that. It makes it much easier to go through. It makes it much more comfortable to know that you can have comfort in the process as well. Have comfort in knowing that your higher self will guide you where you need to be. Have trust in that process. And by having trust in that process, you can feel more comfortable knowing that you're guided. It all depends on how you look at it. Now, the second reason to stay in 3D that you may say to yourself, and this was me, I'm telling these things from my own personal experience, is loneliness. Because when you first go through a spiritual awakening, what do you want to do? You want to tell everyone. You want to go, you want to tell your friends, you want to tell your family, you want to help them wake up too, because you know the potential of waking up from the dream of the avatar and of the ego and remembering who you really are. But then what you do is you tell them, and they go, what are you talking about? Spiritual awakening, an eternal spiritual being, meditation? What do you, just be who I expect you to be. Be the way that you've always been. And then you look around like, well, maybe this stuff is weird. Maybe this stuff is a little different than I thought. And we're kind of like, what do I do now? And then what we do, though, is we then may go back into our little hermit shell, and we may not want to see and be around as many people that negate who we actually are, even though it's authentic for us to be talking about these things that we're passionate about. And then sometimes what happens is we then develop this belief and this identity with saying, people in my life just aren't awake. That happened to me. I went through my spiritual awakening, told a lot of friends, told a lot of family, was excited about it, and almost all of them, except for a couple people, thought I was weird, thought I was like crazy going through something. I'm like, no, you got to understand, you're in the hypnosis of the avatar. I didn't say that. I didn't even call it avatar back with spiritual awakening days, but you're just asleep. I remember just thinking like, everyone's just asleep. Why can't other people wake up? I felt lonely for about 6 to 8 months. I didn't really do much at all. I just felt lonely. I would meditate every day. I'd go be with plants and be in nature. I lived in the middle of, I lived like in Vegas, but a little bit on the offskirts, to where I lived in a house in the middle of nowhere. That's where my spiritual awakening happened. It was a nice house too. It was cool. It had property, and then there were mountains close by and stuff, and it was really in the middle of nowhere. And I just that was my spiritual awakening, because I kind of felt alone. I didn't really feel like going and meeting other people wondering what's there, and I could kind of feel what they were thinking about me. And I can see how many people would say it's lonely in this 5D. I want to stay in 3D where I can relate to my other friends in a new way. And I'll say, yes, a lot of my relationships, they have changed when it comes to how I relate to people. They have changed. But that's part of the process of evolving. And it's not that those people don't have to be in your life. It's like they can be, but the relationship will evolve to a new level. A lot of times more depth. So you may say, and you may be afraid, so you may go back to the 3D and just talking about the same stuff. I'm going to talk about hockey, I'm going to talk about this, I'm going to talk about that. And you can still enjoy those things in 5D as well, but what I'm saying is I'm going to just go into the asleepness of it all. And that's what I kind of doubted it for a while, because of not just the comfort, but of the loneliness. But here's the thing, if you stick with it and you drop the definition that everyone around me is asleep, you'll allow people to come into your life that are awake. And now with the power of the internet as well, we can connect to people all over the world, millions of people that are awake, that are in a 5D level of consciousness. And as time goes on, it will become easier and easier and easier. So just trust that process. But the reason to stay in 3D is because it feels lonely in 5D. But I'm telling you right now that as time goes on, it will get easier and easier. And by you not being yourself as well, other people aren't really getting to know the real you. The best thing you can do is just be yourself. Whatever you like to talk about. Yes, I understand there's some discernment. I don't go talking about ascension and starseeds to everyone I talk to at the gym. I'm discerning with that. But I talk, if I'm with my buddy Victor, we'll talk about it wherever. I'll be in an Uber talking about that stuff. I don't really care what people think. But understand, you don't have to be that much of a rebel. You can just be yourself. Just say what you want. You'll find your tribe. But don't develop a negative belief that says that people just aren't awake, because then that'll be a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's at least what I learned in my process. Now, the third reason to stay in 3D and not go into 5D level of consciousness reminds me of a quote from the movie The Matrix. The movie The Matrix, the reason it did so incredibly well is because at a very deep level, I believe it resonates with people. We do live in a form of matrix. Reality is a form of simulation. We are eternal spiritual beings dreaming we are these little avatar bodies. And in a certain part of the movie Matrix, there's a guy that's like the bad guy. His name's Cypher. He's a guy that tried to like hack the Matrix and like he was bitter at it. So he was like trying to kill off the people that were inside the Matrix that were doing some type of work. And at a certain point, he made a deal with like the agents. And he's at dinner eating this steak dinner and he's eating it. And he goes, "You see, I understand that this steak isn't real. I understand that it has no realness whatsoever. But you know what? Ignorance is bliss." And then he eats the steak. And he was working out a deal that he would forget about the whole knowing about the Matrix thing and come out of the spiritual awakening, that's the metaphor, go back into the Matrix if he did some deals with the agents and he'd like sabotage their whole operation with Neo and Morpheus and all of them. And then he would be able to go back into the Matrix and be really rich and be all the 3D things that he could possibly want. But it doesn't turn out too well for Cypher. That was his goal, that was his plan, but it doesn't turn out that way. Now understand though, that that's a metaphor for spiritual awakening. Ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is bliss. Sometimes, yes, maybe you're right. Maybe all of these things with spiritual awakening, maybe it's true that we are eternal spiritual beings. We can begin to connect that. It feels very expansive. But it sure is fun to go to a hockey game. It sure is fun to indulge in alcohol or to do this or whatever it is. I get that that can be blissful. But when you become aware of the true impact it has on you, especially in excessive amounts, you then see how detrimental it can be. So ignorance is only blissful for us for a little tiny moment. But as the long spiritual aspect of you, it is not bliss. Bliss is when you begin to ascend into 5D. It is our natural state of being. But we have to unlearn everything we learned in order for us to get to this higher state of consciousness. And the way that we unlearn what we learned is we first off become aware of what we did learn. By becoming aware of what we did learn, what we can then begin to do is we can then let go of what doesn't serve. And by letting go of what doesn't serve, you then raise your frequency because this is who you are naturally. The only reason we feel less than is because we've got all these weights on us. We got all these things that bog us down. So yes, ignorance may be bliss, but when it comes to indulging in excessive amounts of drugs or any drugs, alcohol, like unhealthy relationships with sex, any of this can be detrimental to our vibration. So be aware of it. It might be ignorance is bliss, but it also has a spiritual consequence. Everything in life has consequences. It's sometimes a good consequence, but be aware of what you're choosing. What are you choosing? Remember this saying, in this reality we call life, A, B, C. Always be choosing. Always be choosing. Always be choosing, because if you treat anything like a choice, you then begin to loosen up the vibration about it, and it's very powerful. So choose your spiritual awakening. Yes, you might have these reasons to stay in the 3D, but understand those reasons come from the ego. Go beyond the ego and go into being, go into acceptance, go into allowing. By doing so, it begins to loosen up this whole process and you begin to move through it quicker than ever. So understand you are much more than you can even imagine. Understand that this process of moving to 3 to 5D is going to happen in this life for anybody that wants to be a part of it. It's happening now. It's here right now. We don't have to wait for it. And as time goes on, this will quicken up. This will pop for more people. And I'm excited to be here with you in this process. So something that I have that will help you in this process of raising your frequency is a free guided meditation in the top of the description box below. You can download it, listen to it for 21 days. I think it'll help you change your life and raise your vibrational set point. Also, I'll be doing more live Q&As on Instagram, so if you haven't followed me on Instagram yet, you can do it right here. I post twice a day right there, and then you can also ask me questions and stuff like that too. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, hit the little notification gear so you can see the daily vids that I do. Other than that, as always, peace, much love, and namaste.